Hello everyone, my name is Ahmad, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you can create such a Reddit clone that you can add, for example, a title for an article, for example, hello, and a link to that article. And when you click on submit, it gets added, it gets posted to the array of all the articles below. And the interesting thing is that you can upvote them, and whenever it gets more than the other one, the one that's on top of that, it gets up one level, and the one that's got let's score goes down. Let's get started. First of all, open up your favorite IDE. I've installed Visual Studio Code, and in here I'm gonna go about creating the first part of it, the HTML template for this component that you see here. So go ahead and press Ctrl P and type app. Before that, we've got to create a project. I'm gonna create it in my project folder. I've created 3 of these projects, so I'm gonna call it Reddit 3. Type ng new Reddit, whatever you want to call it. The project is fairly small, so I'm not gonna add routing to it, so I'm gonna type no. CSS is fine. As you can see, the project is now created, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to app. First of all, I'm gonna open it, press Ctrl Shift P and press on open folder. Go to the directory that you created project in, and I'm gonna open it up in VS Code. So press Ctrl J if you're in VS Code and type ng serve so we can see what the project looks like. So the project is now created and we can see it in the browser. So refresh the browser. As you can see, the default Angular template when a new project is created is showing up, but we don't need it, so we're gonna delete everything in the file app component HTML. So press Ctrl P to search for files and type app component HTML, press Ctrl A and press delete. So we didn't need them, so it's all gone now. And if you go and refresh the browser again, there's nothing. So again, if I open a new tab and type localhost 5200, let me check it out here. Again, 5200, and now this is our original project, and here we've got an empty blank project, so we're gonna create it. Go about creating this input card. So go to your IDE and get on with creating the HTML. I'm gonna fast forward to you so you won't get bored, and yeah, that's it. So if I refresh the browser, you can see we've added two inputs, one with the label title and the other one with the label link, and there's also submit button, so we can submit whatever that's written title and link. And now let's make it a little bit more beautiful. As you can see, it's not looking that pretty, so I'm gonna get on with adding CSS. Now, as you can see, it's looking a lot better. Now let's get on with adding the logic that makes us able to write something, to type something in here and console.log it whenever we click on the submit button. So we're gonna add a click event to the submit button as well. Let's go ahead. Close this one. Sorry, open it again. And in here, we want to get the input of these two inputs, one named title and the other one link. To do that, we have to use the pound sign followed by a name, for example, title. In here, if we add a pound sign to whatever, to an input or anything, with the title, it creates a local variable, so we can use that to transfer some kind of a variable to the logic side of the component. And we're going to do the same here. We're going to get the title, and I'm going to do the same for link as well, # followed by name, another local variable, and I'm gonna get them and console.log them in the browser. And I want these values to be printed out whenever the submit button is clicked. So I'm gonna add an event. Whenever we want to add an event, we've got to wrap them with in parentheses. So I'm gonna type parentheses click. It means whenever this button is clicked equals, and I'm gonna give it a name of a function that gets called. For example, add article. And because it's a function, I'm gonna add parentheses at the end. But as you can see, it's showing me an error that it means this function hasn't been created yet. So I'm gonna do that. First of all, I'm gonna close Explorer so we've got more room by pressing Ctrl B, and open second tab using Ctrl number 2. It means it's gonna create a tab with the label 2. And in here, open up app component TS. And in here, as you can see, there's a variable by default named title, but we don't need it because it was created when at first we created a project, and it was using the default template, so we don't need it. I'm gonna press delete and enter, and I'm gonna type add article curly braces, and I'm gonna type before that I'm gonna add 2 inputs for this function. One, name title, and we've got to give it a type. I'm gonna give it the type of HTML input element, and I'm gonna do the same for link of type HTML input element. And in here I'm gonna type console.log title dot value, because whenever we want to get the value, not all the other not in our case useful data, we've got to get the value of the title, because HTML input element is a type, I think, of an object, and objects have many other values, but in our case we want the value. So type title.link or type title.value, sorry. So in here there's a compilation error. If we go to our component HTML, it says the function that we declared here requires 2 inputs, but we haven't inputted anything in here. So I'm going to type title that we created here, and we also want to input link that was declared here again with a #. So if we go to the browser and refresh and press F12, so we can have the dev console, and if I type hello and click on submit, see what happens. Hello gets printed out. So we're successfully getting the value of title and link. Now that we've created this component, we're going to go about creating this component that holds the values of the points, the title, and the link, and also the up and downward functions for an article. So let's go about creating that component. First of all, open up VS Code, and in here open your terminal using Ctrl J, and open a new tab in terminal using Ctrl Shift number 5, and in here you can create a new component using ng generate component with the name article. Press enter, and as you can see, it's created our article component. Close both tabs and open up article component HTML. As you can see, there's default p tag, and inside of it says article works. Let's go to the browser and see what changed. Press F5. As you can see, we cannot see anything that says article works. So why is that? Because we've got to incorporate that article component in our app component HTML. So open up app component HTML, and at the bottom I'm gonna comment it out and say article component and type app article and close it. And why is that? Whenever you create a new component, whatever the name is, the usual use of that in other components is used with the name app dash followed by the name of the article of the component. And see what happened. As you can see, we've got article working. And if you want to know the exact name, where the exact source of this name, open up a second tab and type article component ts, and in here there's a selector for every component that we create, and in here, as you can see, it's clearly written app-article. So app dash followed by the name of the component is the selector that we can use in other HTML components. So close it up, and now we've got it working. I want to go ahead and add the necessary HTML for this component. So close it, and in here delete everything, and I'm gonna create the HTML and fast forward. So let's go ahead. As you can see, and now if we refresh the browser, we can see some new HTML was added, but it's looking pretty ugly, so I'm gonna style it using CSS. Open up a second tab, article component CSS. Let's go ahead. As you can see, everything's now working, but the problem is that we don't want this 3 or this title or this link to be hard coded. How do we go about that? First of all, we're going to create some variables inside the component or inside our article component logic. But the problem is that whenever we create variables in there, it gets a little bit crowded and unmaintainable. It becomes a file that's hard to read, and whenever you come up after a long time to it, you won't understand what's going on, because our model and controllers have got to be separate. So instead of going to create variables inside our logic, we're going to create a new model file that's got all the models, all the variables, and it actually separates the logic, the controller, from our model. And there's also a saying in MVC, model view controller architecture, that says we've got to have skinny controllers, fat models. Skinny controllers, fat models, because everything looks a lot prettier and maintainable down the road. So let's go ahead and do that. So in here, close down everything and go to File Explorer, and in here click here and click on New File. I'm gonna call it article.model.ts. And in here, I'm gonna declare all the models that's got to do with our article. So first of all, I'm gonna type export class article with capital A, because it's a convention that every class created has got to start with a capital letter. And I'm gonna add title of type string, link of type string, and votes of type number. And in the constructor of the class, I'm gonna add also some variables that gets initiated. But for clarification, a constructor of a class is actually a function that gets executed, that gets initialized whenever the class is used. So it's the default function that gets executed when we use that particular class. And in our case, I want to initialize whenever the class is used, I want to initialize these variables that we declared. I want to give title a value, I want to give link, and also votes some values. So we've got to use them in the constructor so they get initialized whenever this class is used. So go down here and add title of type string. It's another title. It's not this title. It's the title that gets input to this class whenever we use it in another component. And I also have a length of type string, and I also have votes of type number. But we want to give the user, the programmer, the ability, or the user, the ability to just add the link and the title if they want to, and votes if they want to. So we want to make this votes optional. If they want to give it a number, they will. If not, we want to default it to a value, to another value like 0. So we've got to add a question mark. A question mark here in the constructor, in the input of a constructor or function, means that we must have title, we must have length, but votes is not mandatory. It can be left empty. So I'm going to say this, and you may ask what this means. This, for example, this title equals title. What does this mean? This means whenever we want to select another variable outside the function, outside the scope of a function, in our case constructor, it means if we want to select this one that's outside these two curly braces, we've got to use this, and this means outside. So the outer title equals the inner title without this keyword. And the other one is this.link equals link. This one. And this.votes equals votes. And the question is, what if I don't input votes into this constructor? We cannot have votes empty, so we've got to default it to something. So this dot votes equals votes or 0 if votes is empty. That's it. And we've got to add a function for increasing the number of votes. So we type this dot votes equals this dot votes plus 1. Whatever the value of votes is, for example, at some point the number of votes is 5. We say this dot votes equals this dot votes is 5 plus 1, and the new value will be 6. It goes up but by 1 digit. But the problem here is that this looks a little bit too long and unnecessary. So how do we go about typing it? We can type this dot votes plus equals 1, and it's the same as the last statement, but it's a lot shorter and more readable. We're gonna do the same for vote down. Vote down. I'm gonna type this dot votes minus equals 1. It goes down by 1 digit. And that's it. Now we're going to use it in our article.component.ts in the logic file of our article. Let's go ahead and do that. Open up article component.ts. And in here, first of all, we've got to import the newly created model. So I'm going to type import article with a capital A, because that's the name we gave it, from article.model. It auto-completed it for us. And here I'm going to declare a variable called articles of type article, an array of article. And as you can see, it's underlined and it says it hasn't been initialized, so we've got to initialize it first. How do we go about that? As I told you before, constructor is a function that gets executed when we use a class. In our case, we can use it to initialize articles. So in here, go inside it and type this dot articles equals, I'm going to initialize it here, equals an array, and I'm going to type new article. I'm going to create a new instance of the model that we created, new article. I'm going to input a title, Angular, a link, http angular.io, and also votes. As you can see, we haven't got an error yet because we can add votes, but if we don't, that won't be a problem. But I'm gonna add votes. I don't want it to be default to 0, sorry. And I'm gonna duplicate this line a couple of times. So we've got 3 articles now in our articles array, but I'm gonna change it a little bit. And why am I doing these things? Because I want to show you. I'm gonna add some default articles so you can see what's going on. uh, After that, we're gonna create them dynamically using our inputs. It's just an example, we can delete them later. For example, full stack with the title, again full stack, and this one Angular homepage. That's it, with 1 vote. And now we have declared everything here. The articles contains 3 articles, but we haven't used it in our component.html. If we go to the browser, nothing new is showing up. So open up article component.html. So here, instead of the hard-coded 3, I'm gonna have 2 curly braces. What does that mean? It means that in our HTML, we can use variables that's coming from the logic side of the component using 2 curly braces. It's also called a mustache tag or whatever, but I don't like that name, so I'm gonna use say curly braces. So type 2 curly braces and type the variable that you want to use. In our case, articles of index 0 dot votes. Well, yes, it's working pretty fine. And the same for the href. I'm gonna type again let me see what's going on. Articles index 0 and link. That's it. And in here again, remove the hard-coded one, 2 curly braces, and I'm going to type articles index 0 and title. I'm going to copy this one and I'm going to paste it here. If we go to the browser and refresh, as you can see, it's coming from our logic side, but to be sure, I'm gonna change the value. Instead of 0, I'm gonna have 1 printed out so you can see the changes. Instead of Angular, we're gonna have full stack printed. Go to the browser and refresh. Wow, it's coming from, it's not hard-coded no more. Congratulations, pat yourself on the back. We've gone so far. A little bit has been left. That's it. Let's go ahead and finish the project. Go here. And as you can see, go to the browser again. As you can see, we've got only 1 article. We want many of them. And we want the value to come from here, to come from title and link, and whenever the submit is clicked. So how do we go about that? First of all, we've got to find a way to duplicate it many times, multiple times. So go close it and open up app component HTML and put it inside div, wrap with abbreviation div. That's it. We've got it in a div. And in here, we've got 2 ways. We can duplicate it many times. So in here, we can duplicate it many times like this. Sorry. So we can duplicate it many times, but here in the browser it looks something like this, but we don't want that. We want it to be duplicated as many times as we have articles in our article array. If we've got 3 articles in the array, we want it to be duplicated 3 times. So we've got to wrap it in a for loop. So remove everything, all of them except one, and in here type ng4. ng4 is a loop in Angular that can be used in the HTML file. So instead of the logic, we can also ng4 HTML tags. We can loop HTML tags directly in our app component.html. So that's a very good and useful feature. And I'm gonna type ng4 let. Let is a keyword to creating variables. Let article of what? Of articles. But the problem is that we haven't got articles variable in our app component.ts. We have it in our article.component.ts. So how do we go about that? Because we want the data to come from app.component.ts, not article.ts, we've got to move everything that we coded in our article logic to app component.logic, so we can input the values from here and get them from title input and link input. So close the Explorer so we've got more room. Open a new tab using Ctrl+2. Open article.component.ts, and in here in tab 1 open app component.ts. Move everything from here to here. So first of all, you've got to move here, go to tab 1, the second line, Ctrl+V again. There's an error because it doesn't understand it. Now it understands. The directory is a little bit different, so that's why. Go again to tab 2 using Ctrl+2, Ctrl+X to cut it, to move it. Go to tab 1 using Ctrl+1, and in here Ctrl+V. Perfect. Again, Ctrl number 2, Ctrl+X, Ctrl+1, Ctrl+V. Now everything's working perfectly. Go to the second tab, Ctrl+2, and open up app component HTML. And in here, as you can see, it's working fine. Let ng4, it's a loop, let article of articles. And that's it. Go to the browser and see what happened. Oh, we've got an error. That's unfortunate. Let's see the problem. Let's see. Go to the ID and close down everything. Go to article component HTML. We've got some values that we don't have anymore because we moved them all. So remove everything. Sorry, don't remove anything. Remove it. Again, we're gonna hard code them once again, but we're gonna fix them later on. Angular, that's again the link. Again, that's it. Go to the browser, and now you can see it's been looped around for 3 times because we had 3 articles in the array. Everything is working fine now, but there are some problems. First, I want to be able to submit. So now let's go about creating that first, solving that, and then we're going to solve other problems. So close down everything, go to app component.html. Open a second tab, go to app component.ts, and in here in our function, instead of just logging the information, we can push the information into the articles, and whenever a new item is pushed into this articles variable, another article will be printed out in the browser. So we're gonna have 4, 5, or even more articles. So let's go about that. It's not doing anything. Console.logging is useless, so remove it and add this .articles.push. Push method adds another variable to an array. So we're gonna push a new value, and the value is new article, and the title of the article is this title dot value. In our previous function we logged it. Now we're gonna input it in articles. Another one link dot value, and we can leave votes empty, so it'll be defaulted to 0. And now let's see what happens. If I type hello and hello.com and press submit, wow, things are looking pretty good. But the problem is I want to submit, and I want this to be blank again whenever I click submit. So what do? In here, after pushing the new value, I want the title dot value to be an empty string again, and I want link dot value to be an empty string again. That's it. That'll do, I think. So let's go to the browser, type something, and click on submit. It gets added, but it goes blank whenever I click on submit. It's working pretty fine. And now the other problem is that whenever we click on submit, it adds a new article, but all the information in it is the same. So we've got to fix that. So close everything, open article that component.html, and open a new tab, article component.ts. New tab, open in the first tab, open app component.html. As you can see, we're looping around the article component, but how do we transfer this value of articles to the inside of article component? How do we go about that? There's a decorator called input decorator, and by using that we can input some value to another component, from one component to another component, using that. So let's use that and see how do we go about transferring some value from one component to the other. So in here, type @ input. So when I press enter, a new value was imported from Angular for /core. So @ input article of type article, and when I pressed enter, article was added again, and it says there's an error. Why is that? It says that it hasn't been initialized. It means that it's empty. There's nothing for article, but we haven't added any value yet, and we want the value to come from app.component.html. I want the value to come from here. So, but I don't want to initialize it here. How do we solve the problem? I can add an exclamation mark that it means it doesn't need to be initialized, and it fixes the problem. And that's it. It's working now. And now go to the first tab, close this one, and now in article component HTML, instead of the hard-coded one, we're gonna change it again from hard-code to dynamic. Hard-coded. So I'm gonna type article dot title. Simple. I'm gonna copy and paste it in other places. Control V. Instead of title, I'm gonna have link. Instead of this, I'm gonna have this, and Control V. I'm gonna have link. That's it. Let's go to the browser. What's going on? There's a problem. I'm gonna let me see where the problem is coming from. Let's see. Again, there's nothing here. I found the problem. The problem is that in our app.component.html, we loop around article, but we don't input anything. So when we use the import decorator, we've got to push the value to the component from the first component to the second one. How do we go about that? We go about that by typing brackets. Bracket means we want to transfer some value to this component, to the inside of this component, and it auto completes for us article. I'm gonna type it means import article @ decorator article equals, and I'm gonna use this one. I'm gonna input this one, so I'm gonna Control C, and in here again curly braces and Control V. Oh, sorry. Whenever we have brackets, we don't need curly braces. Brackets will do the job. And go to the browser and see what happens. Now, everything, fortunately, is working fine. Again, pat yourself on the back. Congratulations. You've done a great job. Now, the problem is that upvote or downvote doesn't work. It's pretty simple to solve. Open up article component.ts and add two functions. So these functions, what will the functions do? These functions that I'm gonna name vote up or vote and vote down will be using our models vote up or vote down. So it's a wrapper for another function. So I'm gonna type vote up this dot article dot vote up dot vote up. I'm gonna use the functions. That's it. It's pretty simple. The same again for vote down. Vote down this dot article dot vote down. But we've got to use these functions inside our HTML. So open up a second tab, open article component HTML, and in here for upvote and downvote, add a click event. Click. Whenever it's clicked, I want it to use upvote, vote up. As you can see here, I don't want the second one, downvote, to use vote down. Simple, isn't it? It's very simple, isn't it? Vote down. Okay, that's it. That's it. It's working. Go to the browser, click it. It's working. Wow. What about this one? It's working, and the votes is defaulted to 0. It's working, but the problem is if I upvote this, it doesn't go up. That's simple to solve. Go to VS Code, close down everything, open up app, components, HTML, open a second tab, type app, component TSR, close the first tab, we don't need it. And in here, I'm going to create a new function that sorts articles array from top to bottom and based on the votes. So I'm going to type sorted articles, of type array of articles will output what's going on. I'm going to type return this dot articles dot sort articles, and we have two inputs. The first one, we have two values to compare. The first one, A of type article, again B of type article. It's the input of the sort method. It means two values coming and both of them of type article, and create an arrow function. It's a function again. I want B dot votes minus A dot votes. It's just comparing the votes, the value A votes and the value B votes. And the first one, the bigger one, goes to the top, and it's going to sort the array based on that. And if we go to the browser, nothing new has happened. So we've got to use sorted articles instead of articles in our component HTML. So go ahead and change that. ng4 let articles of sorted articles, and it'll do the job. So if I upvote this one, wow, it went up. Great. Add a new article. Again, now everything is working. Thank you so much for watching. If you've got any questions, please ask in the comments down below. I'm so happy that I've created my first tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.